long before time was measured in beats of mortal hearts, long before the first sunrise kissed the face of earth. There existed only the heavens, infinite, boundless, and untarnished. No sorrow, no fear, only the harmony of divine will. The realm of God pulsed with living light. Not a light that could be extinguished or dimmed, but one that sang. It had a voice, a warmth that healed, and a rhythm that breathed purpose into everything it touched. Within that infinite expanse, no corner lacked wonder. The stars had not yet been cast into the sky, but already the heavens blazed with majesty. Here, order reigned not by force, but by love. At the center of it all sat the throne of the Creator, a presence so immense and so still it filled everything, yet moved nothing. Around it circled creatures of fire and purity, each more radiant than the last. The seraphim, closest to the throne, burned with divine passion. They sang endlessly, not out of obligation, but because the joy within them could not be silenced. Holy, holy, holy is the Lord Almighty. Their voices rose like thunder wrapped in silk. Beneath them stood the cherubim, carved in beauty and mystery, guardians of divine secrets. They were sentinels of the unknown, protectors of cosmic balance. They moved like lightning and thought like eternity. Then came the archangels, generals of God's will. Where they walked, universes shifted. Where they spoke, stars obeyed. And finally, the angels, countless and varied, messengers and watchers, guides and warriors. Each had a role, each a purpose. All danced in harmony. But amid these divine hosts, there was one who shone brightest. He was the first thought spoken into form, the first breath of light sculpted by the hands of the Eternal. His name was Lucifer Morning Star. He was not merely beautiful, he was perfection distilled. Every facet of him sang with grace. His wings were woven from the winds of creation. His voice could calm storms and stir mountains to dance. Wisdom rested on his brow like a crown, and every movement he made seemed orchestrated by the music of heaven itself. You were the seal of perfection, full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Lucifer walked among the fiery stones, the sacred places closest to the throne. There, only the most trusted of God's creations were permitted. His presence did not disturb. It exalted. When he passed, angels paused. When he spoke, even the seraphim turned to listen. He organized choirs, orchestrated praise, and his voice rang like a melody forged before the concept of sound. He did not serve, he glorified. And the heavens glorified with him. It was said by the cherubim that God, in creating Lucifer, had reached the peak of his artistry, not because he had exhausted his power, but because he had chosen to. Lucifer was not just a creation, he was a masterpiece. God delighted in him. And so did the angels. Even Michael, the great warrior, stood with a brother's pride beside Lucifer. Their bond was strong, not rivals, but twin pillars of heaven's command. Where Lucifer led the praise, Michael led the defense. Where one sang, the other stood silent. Together, they were the balance of heaven's might. Lucifer did not question. Not yet. He soared, burning with joy. Lucifer's radiance was not merely external, it came from within. His heart pulsed with or toward his Creator. All he did in reverence. His joy was complete, his place assured. To serve was not to submit, it was to exalt, to magnify. And yet, even in heaven, where no shadows dwelled, something ancient stirred. It began, not with defiance, but with wonder. A passing thought. A glimmer, like the flicker of a candle before dawn. Why was I made so? Wondrous. It was not arrogance. Not then. It was the awe of a being self-aware. A creation conscious of its beauty, its grace, its purpose. Lucifer dismissed the thought quickly. He had no need for such musings. He was content, purposeful, aligned. But thoughts are like seeds, and even in divine soil, they may sprout if left unexamined. He returned to his duties with renewed fervor. Perhaps he sang louder. Perhaps his voice trembled with something unspoken. No angel noticed. Not then. To them, he was still the crown of creation, the beloved firstborn of the celestial hosts. And still, heaven thrived. As God envisioned more, heaven expanded. A grand design unfolded, realms and dimensions blossomed like flowers in eternal spring. The Creator spoke, and stars ignited. He breathed, and time itself inhaled. But above it all, he still held Lucifer close, trusted him, honored him. The holy mount, that sacred place upon which only the chosen stood, welcomed Lucifer with open flame. He walked among the fiery stones, glowing not with heat but with holiness. There, he felt closest to the mind of God. You were on the holy mount of God, you walked among the fiery stones. Lucifer began to feel unique, set apart, different. The cherubim did not feel what he felt. The seraphim, though mighty, did not resonate with his thoughts. Even Michael, valiant and firm, did not glow as he did. Was I not made first? Were these others not formed after me? The thought was not spoken. It was never shared. It simply echoed, quietly, in the deepest chamber of his mind. Time passed, or at least, the eternal stillness shifted. The Creator turned his gaze toward a new project, something hidden in mystery, whispered only in fragments through the layers of the heavens. A new world, a new creation. Lucifer sensed it, before even the archangels were told. His spirit trembled, not in fear, but in curiosity. For the first time, something felt different. A veil had been drawn, and behind it, something was being formed that would challenge the very structure of heaven. Not in power, but in attention. Lucifer wondered, what could pull the Creator's gaze so fully? He did not speak his question. He simply watched and waited. The chorus of creation. When God finally revealed his new work, it shook the heavens with awe. A world, fragile, finite, and teeming with potential. Earth. Its skies did not burn with eternal flame. Its stars were dim reflections of heaven's glory. And yet, God looked upon it with joy that rivaled even his delight in the angels. Lucifer was present when the first seas were poured, when the winds were loosed, when beasts were sculpted and stars pinned in the firmament. He heard the Creator whisper, "It is good." But the greatest mystery was still to come. Man, crafted from dust, from the ground, no less. Fragile, flawed, needy. Yet, God breathed into him. Not merely animation, but something deeper, spirit. A soul, carrying the mark of its maker. Lucifer recoiled. Not in horror but in confusion. He has given them his breath. This being, this human, was not immortal, not mighty. Yet God gave him dominion over the new world. Angels were instructed to serve as watchers, guides. Lucifer, too. For the first time, Lucifer felt the tremble of something cold, something foreign. Envy. He had not known the word. There had never been need. But now, he knew its shape. The humans would fall. Surely, they were weak, incomplete, and yet, they were loved. God walked with them. God delighted in them. Lucifer turned his gaze back to the heavens, where his throne had stood unchallenged, his brilliance unmatched. And something cracked. A small fracture. A tiny line across the perfect mirror. Gabriel's concern. The change was subtle. A slowing in Lucifer's speech. A pause between his notes. A quiet heaviness. Gabriel noticed. He approached one day on the Mount of Fire, where the stones no longer hummed beneath Lucifer's steps. "Brother," Gabriel said gently, his wings folded with concern, "your light grows restless. What burdens you?" Lucifer turned, his eyes deeper than they had ever been. "There are things even we cannot understand, dear Gabriel." Gabriel waited. Lucifer offered no more. The turning. Lucifer began spending more time alone, contemplating the vastness of the cosmos, staring into stars yet unnamed. He asked questions, never out loud, but always pointed. Oh, what is divinity? Oh, what makes the Creator greater? Or if I, too, can create beauty, inspire or command hosts, am I not close to equal? It was not rebellion. Not yet. But it was not worship, either. And heaven, though still radiant, held its breath. The omen. One night, if such a word could exist in timelessness, Lucifer stood at the edge of heaven, where creation's border met the formless void. There, he saw a vision. A throne. Empty. He stepped toward it. And for a moment, he saw his reflection seated there, crowned in stars. The image flickered, then vanished. But it was enough. Lucifer turned back, his heart beating with a rhythm not born of heaven. Not all storms begin with thunder. Some begin in silence. Lucifer stood at the border of heaven, where the divine song softened and creation's edge shimmered in uncertainty. Before him, the vastness of unformed space pulsed with mystery. The stars, still cradled in the hands of time, waited for the voice of the Creator to call them forth. But Lucifer no longer waited. His thoughts wandered, straying further from the Mount of Fire, drifting beyond the choirs he once conducted. Something had changed. Not in the heavens, but in him. What once filled him with joy now left him hollow. What once inspired or now felt expected. He still led the choirs, but their praises no longer stirred his spirit. He still stood before the throne, but the nearness he once felt had begun to fade, like a sunrise slipping behind clouds. And in that silence, a whisper emerged. It was not a voice. Not yet. Just a thought. You were meant for more. It wasn't Lucifer's thought. Not fully. But neither did it feel foreign. It fit too perfectly in the space pride had hollowed out. Lucifer turned away from the stars and began walking. His wings glided without wind. His steps fell on invisible roads paved by will alone. He passed hosts of angels who bowed in reverence, but he barely saw them. They still loved him, respected him, followed him. Of course they do, the whisper mused. Who else would they follow, if not the firstborn of light? Lucifer said nothing. Not aloud. But something inside him agreed. There were places in heaven where the light was so intense, no thought could linger, no doubt could grow. Lucifer avoided these now. Instead, he wandered in quieter corners, places where reflection could curl into introspection, and introspection into suspicion. It wasn't that he hated the Creator. No, he admired him. But admiration, left unchecked, can become comparison. And comparison is the birthplace of rivalry. Lucifer thought often of the humans, their fragility, their smallness. And yet, God had gifted them something unique. Freedom. A will. He had not given that to the angels. Not fully. The angels moved with divine instinct. Their obedience was not coerced, it was nature, purpose, design. But the humans? They were allowed to choose. Lucifer began to wonder, why not us? Why not me? The council of the flame. It wasn't long before Lucifer began gathering others, not with declarations, not with commands, but with curiosity. He posed questions to the most inquisitive of angels. Those who, like him, sought deeper meaning. Have you ever wondered, he asked one seraph, why we are eternal, yet limited? The seraph tilted its head, puzzled. We serve, the seraph answered. That is our joy. Lucifer smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Later, he posed another question to a group of cherubim. If creation is infinite, is our role not too small for such a grand design? They did not know how to respond. And so he asked more questions. Always questions. Never accusations. Never demands. But each query was a thread pulled from the fabric of heaven. And slowly, things began to loosen. Gabriel felt the shift more than most. His connection to Lucifer had once been pure, brotherly, fierce in loyalty. But now he felt a tension he couldn't explain. He found Lucifer again at the border of heaven, where the stars bled into the unknown. Lucifer, Gabriel said softly, you wander too far from the throne. Lucifer didn't turn. I wonder where thought leads me, brother. There are places even angels should not dwell, Gabriel warned. Paths even light should not follow. Lucifer finally turned. His expression was unreadable. Why do you fear questions, Gabriel? I don't fear them, Gabriel replied. But I know their answers must be sought in light, not in shadow." Lucifer's eyes gleamed. "Then perhaps the light no longer holds all truth." And with that, he vanished. The mirror of the soul. One place remained in heaven where no angel dared linger, the well of reflection. It was said to be where the Creator first gazed upon his own essence before speaking the cosmos into being. A place of impossible clarity. Lucifer went there. Alone. He stood before the surface, which rippled not with water, but with living memory. It did not show appearances, it revealed truths. Lucifer gazed. He saw himself as he was, brilliant, magnificent, exalted. But then the image changed. He saw himself crowned in fire, adored, worshipped, above even the stars. His breath caught. "Oh, is this what I could be?" Then the image darkened. His wings, once gold, turned to ash. His eyes, once full of light, burned with emptiness. He stepped back. But the vision stayed with him. Lucifer returned to his quiet gatherings. This time, he spoke more boldly. Not of rebellion, not of war, but of elevation. "Why should we serve endlessly," he asked, "when we are capable of so much more?" A few angels murmured their agreement. Others remained silent. But none left. Lucifer had found his audience. Among them were names now cursed in legend, Semiaza, Azazel, and many more. But then, they were still angels. Still clothed in light. Still revered. He did not ask them to choose. Not yet. But the seeds had been planted. The moment of decision. One day, Lucifer stood before the throne again. The Creator, though silent, saw all. Lucifer felt the gaze, the weight, the holiness. But instead of reverence, he felt resistance. Why must he be above all? Why must all light bend to his will? In his heart, the whisper returned. You could be more. Lucifer made his choice. He would ascend, not through violence, but through will. He would rise above the stars of God. When the brightest light seeks to eclipse the source, even paradise trembles. A stillness before the storm. The heavens did not change in appearance. Stars still sang, the angels still moved in harmony, and the great throne of light still radiated peace. Yet a subtle current stirred beneath the serenity. Like the calm before a storm, the air itself held its breath. Lucifer's gatherings grew in size and secrecy. No longer were his words cautious curiosities. Now they were cloaked ambitions. He spoke of liberation, of evolution, of a higher purpose that even the Creator seemed to deny them. He had no army yet, but he had followers. Angels who admired him, trusted him, loved him. And it was love that clouded their discernment. Not hatred, not rage, just loyalty to the wrong heart. The great silence. The Creator did not speak. Not aloud. Not yet. But his silence was not absence, it was waiting. And within that silence, the great archangel Michael stood watch. He sensed the coming storm. Not with fear, but with deep sorrow. Michael, the sword of heaven, the commander of angelic legions, had once sparred with Lucifer in friendly battle, shared songs and laughter in divine fellowship. Now he watched him with narrowed eyes. "I see the change in your wings," Michael said quietly one day, as they stood beneath the tree of time. Lucifer looked at him, his expression unreadable. "Perhaps it is the world that changes." Michael shook his head. "No. Light does not shift. It either burns or fades. And yours," he paused, "is flickering." Lucifer said nothing. He turned and vanished, but the echo of Michael's words clung to him like smoke. The division of allegiances. It began subtly. Angels started choosing sides, though no open declaration had been made. Choirs no longer flowed in perfect harmony. Some voices hesitated, uncertain. The brilliance of heaven dimmed by imperceptible degrees, as if a shadow had stretched across the stars. Lucifer moved like a prophet through his followers. "Why should the flame of creation burn forever above us?" he asked. "We who were made of fire ourselves, should we not also burn as kings?" There were murmurs of awe. Murmurs of agreement. What if God does not wish us to rise? He whispered. What if he fears what we might become? In every gathering, he was more than a leader, he was a vision, a symbol. The angels he touched became dreamers, revolutionaries, believers. The whisper becomes a roar. At last, Lucifer could no longer keep his ambitions quiet. He made his declaration, silent but thunderous, across the spiritual plains of heaven. I will ascend into the heavens. I will raise my throne above the stars of God. I will sit on the Mount of Assembly. I will make myself like the Most High. The words tore across the cosmos. The silence shattered. Every angel heard them, not with ears, but with spirit. Some wept. Others cheered. And some, like Michael, drew their swords. Michael stood at the center of the heavenly court. The eternal flame above the throne pulsed with divine will. Seraphim ringed the skies, wings aflame, eyes burning with the weight of judgment. Then came the summons. Lucifer entered, not in shame, but in splendor. His robe glimmered, his wings stretched wide, and his face still held the beauty that once inspired all of heaven. He stood before the throne. No words came from the Creator, only light. Lucifer met it with unwavering eyes. Michael stepped forward. You stand before the source of all, he said solemnly. Do you deny him? Lucifer's voice rang out like music. I do not deny what he is. I only claim what I may become. A ripple of anguish passed through the host. Michael's sword ignited. You speak of ascending, he said, but you will fall. Lucifer smiled. Then let us fall upward. The battle ignites. Heaven erupted. The skies split. A million wings beat in fury. Light clashed with light. Angels who had sung together now struck with weapons forged from breath and flame. Michael led the forces of loyalty. His sword sang with truth. Lucifer, now crowned with fire, rallied the rebellious legions. They called themselves the Morning Legion. Their war cry was freedom. The war did not last long. Time does not move in heaven as it does on earth, but it echoed into eternity. Lightning crashed across the realms. The firmament trembled. And then, God moved. Not in wrath, but in finality. He spoke, not in thunder, but in truth so sharp it cleaved the heavens. There shall be no throne above mine. And with that, the morning star fell. Lucifer and his legion were cast out. Not simply banished, but removed from heaven's very essence. Torn from its harmony like a cord snapped from a divine song. They plummeted. Through layers of light. Through the veil of eternity. Until they struck the void. The place outside creation. A prison formed not of walls, but of absence. There, the angels who had once gleamed like stars became shadows. Their forms twisted, not by God's hand, but by their own rebellion. Lucifer's light dimmed until only a cruel reflection remained. He who once radiated wisdom became the father of lies. He who led worship became the accuser. He who bore the name Lightbringer became known by another name, Satan. Heaven was cleansed, but not unchanged. The song resumed, but now carried a mournful note. The angels mourned, not for the fallen, but for the fracture. A perfect realm had known war, and though peace returned, innocence was lost. Michael stood at the edge of heaven once more, gazing into the void. Gabriel joined him. He's down there, Gabriel whispered. Yes. Will he rise again? Michael did not answer. He gripped his sword, not in triumph, but in readiness. What falls from the highest place shatters the hardest, and its shards cut deepest. He fell, not like a meteor, quick and blazing, but like eternity collapsing upon itself. Lucifer plunged through creation's seams, deeper and darker, until he passed beyond the borders of light. He was not merely exiled, he was erased from the harmony of heaven, cut off from the source of divine order. When he landed, there was no sound, only emptiness. A vacuum of joy, of color, of purpose. This place had no name yet, but it would come to be called hell. Lucifer's form, once blinding and perfect, began to change. not by divine command, but by his own pride's corrosion. He tried to con Yireh light again, to rekindle his radiance. But no flame responded. His beauty, once the admiration of angels, twisted with his rage. What was once a crown became a snare of thorns. What were once wings became blackened and cracked. He looked upon his reflection in the abyss, and he screamed. The sound tore through the void and reached his fallen followers. They, too, had begun to twist, some into grotesque mockeries of their old selves, others into shadows too horrific to describe. But he was still their Lord. Even now, even here. And they called him not Lucifer, but Satan, the adversary. Satan paced the scorched wastes of his new kingdom. It had no structure, no light, no harmony, only chaos, fire, and cold. And in that chaos, he found something, hatred. Not the simple hatred of one being for another, but cosmic hatred, total, perfect, and undying. Not for his fellow fallen, not for the angels who cast him out, but for the one who had created him, and everything that the Creator still loved. That was the wound, the unbearable thought. He still creates, Satan hissed. Even after casting me down, he makes new things. His eyes burned with wrath. Let him create. I will corrupt. Let him breathe life. I will poison it. Let him craft perfection, and I will shatter it. Satan watched. He could not re-enter heaven, nor touch its gates, but he could observe. And so he did. He watched as time unfolded. He watched as the stars formed, each one a jewel he'd never wear. He watched as worlds took shape, planets born in fire, cooled by oceans and skies. And finally, he saw Earth, a small world, glistening with potential, untouched, unsullied, and he felt a dark stirring within himself. This one was different. This one would be his battlefield. The moment heaven rejoiced was the moment hell stirred. God, with loving hands, formed a creature not from fire, nor light, but from dust. So small, so mortal, yet crowned with something even angels did not possess. Free will. Satan's fury ignited. He molds clay, he spat, and gives it authority. The angels celebrated the first man. They called him Adam. He was given dominion, wisdom, and a paradise to call home, Eden, a garden untouched by decay. But Satan saw more than a garden. He saw an opportunity, a new creation to destroy. At the center of Eden stood a tree unlike any other, the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. A symbol, a boundary, a test, and to Satan, a weapon. He dares give them a choice, Satan sneered. Then I shall teach them how to choose. He did not approach Adam directly. He waited, watched. And when Eve was formed from Adam's rib, and the man's joy became full, Satan knew where to strike. Not with brute force, but with a whisper, the shape of deceit. Satan took a form, not of horror, but of beauty. A serpent, coiled in wisdom and mystery. Eve approached the tree alone one morning, gazing upon the fruit that was forbidden. She had not touched it, but curiosity sparkled in her eyes. That was all Satan needed. He slithered forth and asked the simplest, deadliest question. Did God really say, "You must not eat from any tree"? Eve answered, hesitant, "We may eat from all, except this one. If we do, we will die." The serpent smiled. "You will not surely die. God knows that when you eat it, your eyes will be opened. You will be like him, knowing good and evil." It was the same lie that consumed Satan. And now, it spread. Eve ate. And then Adam ate. And in that instant, creation fractured. A scream tore through heaven. Not from God, but from the angels, who saw paradise pierced. Satan watched, victorious. Adam and Eve's eyes opened, and shame took root. Innocence fled. They hid from the very one who breathed them into life. Satan's laughter echoed across the void. "They fell," he whispered, "just like me. But God did not destroy them. He clothed them. He spoke to them. He cursed the serpent, but promised a redeemer. "The seed of the woman will crush your head," God declared. And in that moment, Satan felt something he had not expected: fear. The curse spreads. Cast from Eden, mankind began its journey through sorrow, work, and death. But the curse did not stop at their skin. It seeped into the world itself, into the soil, the air, the blood. Violence rose. Cain murdered Abel. Nations warred. Desire corrupted hearts. And Satan moved through it all, an unseen king behind every throne of cruelty. He whispered in empires. He twisted prophets. He mimicked signs. But always, he remembered the prophecy, the one who would crush him. The mask of light. Satan learned to change faces. He knew horror could only go so far. But beauty could deceive even the wise. He became the angel of light, appearing not in monstrous form, but as a being of virtue. He inspired false religions. He built altars to nothing. He made men worship power, pleasure, and themselves. He watched as humanity fractured again and again. But the promise, the one God made in Eden, still loomed like a coming storm. One will come and end me. Satan began searching. He corrupted bloodlines. He provoked genocide. He sowed doubt in the heavens themselves. But heaven stayed silent, preparing. A star would one day appear over Bethlehem. A child would be born not of man, but of spirit. And Satan would tremble. But that is not this chapter. For now, Satan reigns in the shadows, wearing crowns of smoke, feeding off fear, waiting and watching for the one who will either crush him or fall like all the rest. History is not a circle, but a sword pulled back for the final strike. It began with a curse and a promise. As Adam and Eve trembled before the voice of the Almighty, clothed in shame and sorrow, God looked upon the serpent, not with sorrow, but with judgment. "I will put enmity between you and the woman," he declared, "and between your seed and hers. He will crush your head, and you will strike his heel." This was not mere poetry. It was prophecy, the first. And Satan heard it like thunder in his soul. A child would come, born of a woman, a mortal, a savior, a warrior. And one day, the war would end. The ages of war, the centuries that followed, were soaked in blood. Humanity multiplied. So did its sins. Satan worked not in broad strokes, but with patience. He stirred hatred into nations, twisted leaders into tyrants, and whispered into prophets of false gods. Wherever goodness rose, he corrupted it. Wherever peace approached, he shattered it. But always, he searched, watching for the one the prophecy spoke of. He thought the child might come through Noah, then Abraham, then Moses. Each time, he tried to snuff the flame before it could rise. He poisoned hearts. He hardened pharaohs. He provoked genocide. But the plan of the Most High was not so easily broken. The star appears. In the fullness of time, under a moonless sky, a star broke through the darkness. It shimmered not for kings, nor angels, but for shepherds. And Satan's silence was immediate. He felt something shift in the unseen fabric of creation. A trembling. A name echoed through the void. A Yeshua. Jesus. Emmanuel. God with us. Born in a manger, swaddled in human weakness. But Satan knew this was no ordinary child. This was the seed foretold. The one who would crush him. The assault on the Messiah. Satan moved fast. He stirred Herod's paranoia. "Slay every male child," Herod ordered, blind to the whispering voice behind his throne. Blood soaked Bethlehem. But the child escaped. Time passed. The boy grew. And so did the adversary's fear. Satan attacked him in the wilderness, when he was weak and alone. He offered him kingdoms, twisted scripture, and promised power. But the Messiah, fasting, starving, and human, answered each temptation with truth. "It is written." And the devil fled. But not far. Satan's greatest deception unfolded not with violence, but with a kiss. He crept into the heart of Judas. 30 silver coins exchanged hands. And the Son of God was led like a lamb to slaughter. He was beaten, mocked, crucified. And in those final hours, as the sky grew black and the earth shook, Satan believed he had won. "The seed is dead," he whispered. "The promise is broken." But what Satan didn't see was the deeper plan. Because this was not a defeat. This was a sacrifice. The blood spilled on the cross was not weakness. It was warfare. The harrowing of hell. And then, silence. For 3 days. But in that silence, something happened that hell had never imagined. The gates shook. Chains snapped. The ground of the abyss split open. And into hell descended the light. Not to suffer, but to take back what was stolen. The keys of death and Hades. The souls long held in waiting. Satan, once ruler of the dark, now stood in defeat before the resurrected king. And the serpent's head was crushed. The war that still rages. But the story didn't end there. Though the victory was sealed, the battle continues. Satan still moves, though his time is short. He disguises himself still as an angel of light. He tempts, deceives, divides. He inspires evil not by force, but by suggestion. He feeds pride, fuels hatred, and drags souls toward ruin. But now, humanity is not helpless. Because of the cross, there is a choice. A door back to Eden. The final battle. The scriptures speak of a day yet to come. A day of reckoning. A trumpet will sound. The heavens will open. And the king will return, not as a lamb, but as a lion. And the armies of heaven will ride behind him. In that hour, the deceiver will rally his legions. The last rebellion. The final war. Known by many names, Armageddon, Judgment Day, the end of days. On that day, Satan will be cast into the lake of fire. Not merely banished. Not merely bound. But destroyed. Forever. The new heaven and earth. Then comes the restoration. A world reborn. No tears. No death. No night. The garden will return, not as Eden, but as a city of light. And the tree of life will bloom again. Lucifer's legacy will be a warning. A scar across eternity. A testimony that even the highest can fall. But also that love, real love, chooses to stay faithful. So how did it happen? How did heaven's brightest become hell's darkest? It began with a whisper. What if I could be more? And ended with a shout. It is finished. Lucifer's story is not just about rebellion. It is about the price of pride and the power of redemption. And even now, you and I live between the echoes of that ancient war. Every choice we make is part of the same story. A battle. A kingdom. A king who waits for his return. So if you don't want to miss deep Bible stories like this, hit that subscribe button. Thank you.